24th, 2019 Santa Clara, Santa Cruz Counties Airport Community Roundtable meeting here in Santa Clara, California. I'm Steve Alverson with Environmental Science Associates, or ESA, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as the facilitator of this roundtable. Out of respect for everyone's time, one of my roles is to keep the roundtable discussions on topic and within the time allotted on the meeting agenda. Therefore, I may interrupt conversations and then discussions to keep us all on track. I will also insist during this meeting that member discussions and input from the public be respectful to each other, and in particular to our colleagues from the Federal Aviation Administration. Everyone at this meeting is an advocate for minimizing aircraft noise impacts. Therefore, there are no adversaries in this room today. The Roundtable is a collaborative forum within which aircraft noise concerns can be discussed and recommendations can be forwarded to the FAA and others for their consideration. This collaboration will be most productive in a collegial and respectful environment. Abusive or demeaning behavior will not be tolerated. You'll note that there is a public comment period on the agenda, which is intended to provide the public an opportunity to share concerns with the Roundtable members for their consideration. Due to the Brown Act, the Roundtable is unable to take actions at this meeting on items raised during the public comment period. And in accordance with the Brown Act, all deliberations by this body will occur at this meeting. If you wish to speak, please complete a speaker's card, which I am holding up here, and provide it to Evan Wasserman, who's holding up his hand over there. He will then bring it over to Chairperson Bernald during the public comment period. Depending on the number of speakers, the chair may reduce the amount of time allocated to each speaker in order to stay on schedule. For example, at this meeting, we've allocated 10 minutes for the public comment period. If we have 10 speakers, then each speaker will be limited to 1 minute. Thank you all for adhering to that stated time frame. And Madam Chair, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Steve. I'm going to do a call to order and identification of members present. Steve Scharf, if I could start with you, and we will come clockwise. If you will just give us your name and your city.
Stephen Scharf, Cupertino. Glenn Hendricks, Sunnyvale.
Lydia Ku, Palo Alto.
Ed Bodorf, Capitola.
Liz Lawler, Montecito.
Steve Preminger, County of Santa Clara.
Steve Alverson, Mary Lynn Bernald, City of Saratoga, and Chair of the meeting.
Lisa Matichak, City of Mountain View, Vice Chair of this committee.
Cynthia Matthews, City of Santa Cruz.
Kathy Watanabe, City of Santa Clara.
I did hear from Anita Enander that she would be late because she's coming from across town, so I expect her to be here. I have not heard from anyone else.
Lisa's dealing with her car.
Yes, she's coming from Santa Cruz. Yeah. I also would like, to indicate that Tom Pike is here. You are representing?
Here on behalf of Congressman Rocana, thank you.
Thank you, Tom, for attending today. And we have Favi Garcia here from the FAA, and she is going to be introducing.
Yes, thank you. This is William Freeman. William is our new Community Engagement Officer. We've been waiting anxiously for him, for his arrival, and we're very happy to have him on board. I'll let William give a little bit of background of himself.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me? How's everyone? You can say hi. I'm a human too. I'm happy to be here. I have been here for a little bit over 2 months, and I've been taking a lot of notes, and I've been sitting in a lot of meetings to try to understand best what's happening in the different areas, including your areas, and with compassion and understanding that we can try to work together. My background, first and foremost, I'm an Army and Air Force veteran, and so I have an extensive background there, and working with veterans and homeless veterans, and also veterans with PTSD. I also have a background working in oil and gas. As you probably hear some of the controversies back in fracking. I have a background in that. I work with communities there. So, can you hear me? Oh, good. Okay, great. Can you hear me now? It's a Stern technology. And so I have a good background, and like I said, I look forward to working with each and every one of you. Nothing is simple, but we can work forward. And like I said, I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you. And I think we all are very pleased to hear you have a background in PTSD. Yes. Very much so. So thank you for being here. And I now see that Bert has arrived from You take your breath and tell us who you are, please. Oh, you're not on.
Bert Ganong, San Francisco Airport Aircraft Noise Abatement Manager.
And thank you, Bert. Elisa Benson is here, if you'd like to introduce yourself and your position.
Good afternoon, everyone. Elisa Benson, Assistant CEO for County of Santa Cruz, and I'm the alternate for Carlos Palacios.
Thank you and welcome all. Today's agenda is a little bit different than that we have experienced in the past 5 meetings. It was set up in mind to give the roundtable themselves an opportunity to represent their communities and come together in a dialogue with each other so that we can lay a strong foundation moving forward for the roundtable. In 2017, with support of the congressional offices of SU, Panetta, and Kana, the Cities Association, and Andy Jordan is here as the staff member from there. I failed to introduce you, and Evan Wasserman from ESA today. With a great deal of hard work from the congressional offices and Cities Association, the Cities Association began a discussion of setting up what is now SCSC Roundtable. Those discussions included a proposed budget for each city and county. Every one of you here at the table today, whether you are city or county, agreed to pay a certain amount based on your population. That money has and is going directly to the employment of Steve Alverson and his ESA staff. We are fortunate to have this team of Gold Star technical experts. He is the technical expert in the room. Steve Alverson has over 38 years of aviation noise analyses and control experience. He is one of the nation's leading experts in aircraft noise. Today, he will lead our effort to assist the Roundtable with the establishment of our strategic plan and our work program. Steve's expertise is focused on leading effective community involvement programs that bridge the gap between detailed technical analyses and the effects residents experience on the ground. I also would like to add that Steve has the experience of also being the LAX Roundtable facilitator. Now, because there's been some question having to do with the agenda today, I'd like to preface how this came about. In the previous meetings, understanding that it has been a long time coming that this body could be a venue, and a long time since we have closed the ad hoc South Flow Committee and the Select Committee, with not a whole lot of action being seen from FAA implementation of programs or responses to our concerns. We felt that it was important, especially too when we have gathered, that I have heard from members individually who have said, what is our criteria? What is our timeline? What is our success? How are we going to address this? All of that. And coming from an elected position in the city of Saratoga, I realized that one of the best ways for an organization, a council, a roundtable, to work effectively is to bring the members, the council, the roundtable, together in a work-study program. What Steve and his group have done and what I cross-referenced is gathered all the information that has come from the previous meetings and documented it. And in documenting it, this information has informed somewhat the strategic plan and extraordinarily so the work program. This is a heavy load to carry today. I appreciate all the roundtable members coming here. I want to see you roll up your sleeves. I want you to represent your communities because you, I'm sure, have been hearing from your communities what the effects have been on them. And I would like you to give us your input as the official representatives of your community to these items that we are going to discuss. I believe firmly that this is the proper way today to work in the most efficient manner representing the community at large. So we have set up the agenda to have establish the Roundtable strategic plan. Depending on how that goes, we may or may not get to item number 4, the priority of the IFP Gateway, which I thought might inform the Roundtable work program. But if we are finding that we are crunched for time, we will continue item number 4 to a meeting in the future. We also need to affirm the Roundtable as the official body. You will see in this document that, once again, our technical experts have submitted, have garnered all information submitted from community and Roundtable members alike. And there actually is a plan that is a printout that does incorporate everything. We worked very hard to make sure that there should be buy-in from each and every one of you who took the time to submit your submit your information, and I thank you for it. I understand that there is concern about not having public comment with each item, and I want to assure you that this is a heavy load, as I just said, and I do not anticipate that we will come to the point of accomplishing a final vote on these items today. That gives you, the public, an opportunity to submit your input, and you're going to be hearing this over and over today. We have an email address now. It is scscroundtable@gmail.com. Very straightforward. Getting incorporated into the program, getting posted on our website, and getting, when it's appropriate, sent on to the FAA. So I am not working to shortchange you in any way, shape, or form today. I am just informing you the avenues of communication are still open. We will work the best we can within ourselves because we have not had that opportunity as appointed members to do so. And this is why I'm asking for your patience and letting you know that I have not committed any Brown Act violation, because this will be ongoing. We will still be accepting information. I am not putting a wall up in any way, shape, or form about that. Sorry, Steve Scharf. And I am going to offer, couldn't help it, welcome. We will have an opportunity to have comments from the public later on in the meeting, and as Steve Alverson has indicated, if we have 10 minutes and 10 speaker slips, we will have to limit it to 1 minute each. We have information that was submitted to us already in the packet today. And the final thing that I do need to say is so that we can be efficient, we have set a deadline of Friday for information to come to us that might need to be loaded up for a presentation. I'm telling you today for information such as slides that individuals might want to present to us. And so it doesn't matter what the agenda is going to be that comes out. It means that if, for the future, you have slides that need to come to us that will inform a discussion, we have a Friday afternoon deadline. Now, we are going to be working on a work program, and that should also include our priorities, and that will be how we will go forward, hopefully in agendizing our items. And I need all of your input on that, please, today. So I thank you for your patience, and I thank the audience for respecting the program as it is set up today. Again, if you have a feeling strongly about what one of your representatives is saying, there will be no booing or clapping. You can certainly wave. You can get our attention that way. And again, you have an opportunity to submit in writing to scscroundtable@gmail.com going forward. The next thing that I want to do is go back to what Steve had said about the roundtable. It is most beneficial to our group as a whole if we all receive the same information and that we receive it in a timely manner. Alistair Fife submitted something at the last meeting. It has been included. Certain things that we have received in the last meeting are on our website. If they were received after our last meeting, I then need to, don't have necessarily the authority to say that it should be posted on the website or anything else. I need to bring it to our body and have them approve my actions. So going forward, we are now going to go to item 3, establish the SCSC Roundtable Strategic Plan. Steve Alverson.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the Roundtable. So we provided a lot of documents for you for this meeting. Hopefully you've been busy reviewing and reading them since they went out on Friday afternoon and were posted to the website. The first of those documents is a strategic plan. You may recall that at previous meetings, there was some member discussion saying, well, we kind of want to know where we're going, we want to know what our direction is, we want to have goals. And I think it was Anita who mentioned perhaps we can have ESA draft these documents up and give us something to react to. In the past, I've worked the strategic plan with roundtable groups, usually over a series of meetings, and kind of hashed it out during that. This approach is a little bit different. You have basically a full draft document before you for your consideration. We're prepared today to take your input on it. We can actually go live on the document and edit it if you have minor changes to it. If it's extensive changes that you have, rather than use up everyone's time doing editing, we would suggest using the same approach as we did last time with the resolution, and that is to provide feedback to us by date certain. We can then combine that into a revised strategic plan and bring that to you at a future meeting. So with that, I open it up to the floor, to the members, to provide any comments that they have on the document, any thoughts, any input, and then we can either take it and revise it if they're minor today and have you vote on it, or take comments in mass via the email, website, and then modify it.
If I may, we didn't want to confuse you. I had had some discussion with Steve about the fact that he did help set up the strategic plan for San Francisco Roundtable, and I did want to let you know that 3 of the items are pretty much identical to what they have. The 4th item is different because they have an airport in their jurisdiction, and it's impacted by the SFO information that needs to be included. So that's where we vary. But this is a strategic plan that has been standing for many years. And this is to be a general introduction to what we hope to have going forward, very high level. Each one of these goals will then be applied to each of the work program items. So that said, I saw Steve Preminger and I saw Ed Boderoff, and I'll go from there, and then Lydia after that.
I had a couple of questions about the roundtable itself. They're small questions. I saw in the document that we're a permanent body. I saw the strategic plan is a 3-year plan. The work plan is a 1-year plan, and we have staff for the remainder of the year, I guess, through February. So I just have some questions about how do we do all this? Did I sign up for something permanent? And how do we move forward given that?
What I can inform you is that the bylaws have made a recommendation that that appointed individuals should hopefully serve for 2 years.
Oh.
And that the chair can only be the chair for 1 year.
Well, then those weren't issues for me, but also concerned about the staff being available just through February. Is that something that is potentially renegotiated, or does the staff or chair envision us completing our work by then, satisfying all the concerns that exist in the room?
And if I might, Steve, those are great questions. On your last point first, so we are an outside firm, even though we're referred to as staff, and there's a contracting process. So we've been contracted for 1 year to provide these services. As Chair had mentioned, all of your member organizations have contributed to that budget that funds our presence here in supporting the roundtable. And assuming that continues in the future, then I'll be sitting here, or someone will, a year from now, and providing that same support. Also, if the roundtable finds that our services are not satisfactory, then certainly through the Cities Association, they could go seek another consultant for that support. In terms of the questions regarding the timeframes, in the strategic plan, we refer to it as a 3-year plan. Strategic plans are generally a much longer range view, and so we try to set it up to taking a 3-year view so that you don't have to update that every year. The work program is meant to be worked through, so during the course of the year, there might be some items that we accomplish and cross off. There are no doubt items that will be added to that. Generally, I like to see that occur on an annual basis so that we can all be focused on that, work through the work program at one shot, and then add or delete items and all agree where we are in it. However, it's your roundtable. You could, at a particular meeting, request that an item be added to the work program, and assuming that all the members agree to that, then that could be added and other items could be taken off. But ideally, we're updating it on a yearly basis.
Thank you.
If I may add to that, at this point, the city's committed to a budget, as I said before, and some cities in particular have said that they are only on a year-to-year basis based on our success, our achievement of success. So there is that, and as a result, it's been brought to my attention that we probably should do a budget review in the next meeting, if it's possible, and so that kind of discussion will occur. I would like also to remind everyone here that we are a new body, we are a new committee, and where SFO has been moving along for years and years and years, I believe since the 80s, that what we're seeing today is the fact that we are new, and that if we are going to achieve the success that cities are banking on, that we become the advocate for our communities with the FAA, that we need this kind of work today to be able to inform that and to be able to go forward. So, Ed.
Yeah, real simple. I just, I think, I wasn't sure until you just announced it where the goals and came from, but I have no problem with the 4 goals. I think that if we utilize these 4 goals and work through each one of the items that's before us, we can come with a good outcome. It's important to remember every one of those 4 goals is important, so I support the strategic plan the way it's written.
Lydia.
So thank you. First, I want to say thank you for developing this important leadership document to guide the roundtable. And I want to specifically applaud the proactive approach that is stated in here, which states that the roundtable is taking a proactive approach to addressing aircraft noise issues affecting membership communities and the overall region. I know this is critical to our members and the community, that we are proactive. So my high-level input is that we're reminded of objective number 3 in this report. I want to also be reminded of objective number 1 in the MOU, which reads, continue to organize, administer, and operate the roundtable as a public forum for discussion, study, analysis, and evaluation of policies. I think the main important thing in here is that it is a public forum and that it will go through all the action points to minimize aircraft noise impacts to help improve the quality of life of residents in Santa Clara and Santa Cruz counties. So the guiding principles in this document, however, is not inclusive of the general public unless I'm reading it incorrectly. So I'd like to ensure that that is included in there because they're the boots on the ground, and that's how we're going to know how the communities is being impacted by all this from the airplane noise and its impacts. Secondly, our mission is to reduce aircraft impact on our communities. Therefore, we need to be results-oriented. Making recommendation is a means to get to the results, but it's not the end. Our end is to resolve, is to reduce aircraft noise. So ultimately, this is how we must measure our success and have the strategic plan to reflect this. 3, The strategic plan must also incorporate language that's aligned with the proactive approach and results orientation. Since we are successors, we're the successor committee to both the Select Committee and the Ad Hoc Advisory Committee, we need to do more than just monitor status and track. Tracking and monitoring is good, but not enough. Councilmember Hendricks has stated over and over again how do we define success and what does success look like. So we need to follow up, which means evaluate responses, propose new actions and recommendations, measure actual impact and improvement in order to achieve the noise reductions. Lastly, I would like to propose we follow so I wasn't aware how we were going to go in terms of what are we discussion today and taking inputs, and so I hear that that's what we're going to do. So I'm grateful for that, because this is 17 pages of 2 documents, and last time when we did the resolution, I think it was very helpful to be able to submit comments to the chair as well as to Steve and to make the different edits. So I hope we go through that same process. Thank you.
Glenn?
Yeah, thank you. So I actually like the organization of this, where you talk about goal, actions, and try to find the desired results. And to what you were just saying right there, I think the desired results in item number 4 is an overall reduction in objectionable aircraft noise. I mean, I think that somewhat kind of gets to it. But I wanted to go ahead and maybe I'm out of turn here, but item number 1, monitor the status of prior committee recommendations. And we have this letter here that I'm just seeing for the first time. It came from the city of San Jose. And I'll just read part of what it's in here. As the city of San Jose is not represented on this body, their choice, the city of San Jose reserves its right to collaborate with and speak on behalf of its residents to the FAA, and any city would have that. I have no problem with that. And others on past and future actions and inactions. And this is where the issue comes up. They say, especially for the ad hoc committee, which was a creation of the San Jose City Council, whatever. Therefore, the city and its department will continue to engage with the FAA and surrounding community and others to best represent the interests of San Jose. My first comment would be to the city of San Jose. I believe the best way to represent their city's interests would be to join this body. So that's just number 1. But it's really maybe through the chair as a question of the FAA. If we're going to have as our goal to monitor the status and be the body, and I think we have that in our a different thing, if from the FAA's perspective, if they were going to respond to somebody about the ad hoc committee, would they come to this body? If San Jose made a request to them, would you go about specifically things in the ad hoc committee? Would you go to San Jose? Or what? It's because it's really about, how the FAA is going to respond to that. I firmly believe it's okay that the city of San Jose, if they want to talk to the, FAA about anything, they can do that just like any of us cities can. But I think where they're trying to call out specifically about the ad hoc committee, that, puts a little bit of conflict going on.
May I respond to that before any other issues? So it's hot. I spent an extensive period of time talking to Matt Kaczmarek, knowing that this letter was coming to us yesterday. And we are carefully moving forward with setting up a dialogue among Matt and the manager of the airport in introducing ourselves, and hopefully bringing Chappie Jones along with us as a representative of the San Jose City Council. It was in a conversation between Matt and me that he said that we both agreed it would be beneficial, not just to the Roundtable, but also to the city of San Jose and the airport, if the airport could be in the room at the time that we discuss the matters having to do with something such as the South Flow Ad Hoc Committee. We are not there in getting any commitment. They definitely are ruled by the San Jose City Council, and this council has determined their statement as we see reflected in the letter we received today. Again, the most efficient way for this community, this regional community to work is to recognize that the Roundtable is the official venue and that we can, by bringing all the information and the players to the table, I think that's getting to your point. That will expedite our ability to make connection with the FAA and to have them come here to respond. I do not know whether they will be responding. It's still a city's ability, like San Jose, to ask them to come. However, it will be far more efficient if we do recognize and respect and honor this body.
I'm just going to say yes.
Oh, sorry. I'd like to echo what both Lydia and Glenn said, and just point out a couple things. If we're going to submit comments, the nature of what I will be sending is basically two things. One is trying to get making sure we have consistency. In some places, we say that something's limited to noise. In other places, we talk about noise and environmental effects, and that should be consistent, I think, throughout. And I'm concerned where we say monitor, because to me, monitor ain't good enough. We need to be sure.
What would you suggest in its place?
That I'd like to provide information in writing to you for that, but I'm basically wanting to see our desired results be more measurable in every instance, which is, again, something that Lydia mentioned on one of them, but I think throughout. Because, for example, a better understanding on community roundtable members on the various factors and issues, to me, is not enough. We have to be more action-oriented and results-oriented. So yes, that's like understanding precedes doing something, but I want to see a little bit more doing.
Thank you.
But overall, great first cut. Thank you so much.
I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you just in trying to make this work. First of all, thank you for what you have said. Secondly, we now have 3 individuals that have talked about monitor and want measurable. Steve, at this point, are you comfortable weighing in? And then I have another question after that.
Madam Chair, it would be great to hear everyone's input on it first.
Okay, good. Also, in informing us, I would like to know, too, if, since it looks like this will be continued, if in general theory, 1, 2, 3, 4 are items that you feel have addressed what needs to be addressed as a starting point for the strategic plan. I'll go back to Glenn, and then I'm going to move around the table, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, I just want to go ahead and say to your last question, I think, yes, they generally do. I just wanted to kind of point out, it occurs to me in goal number 1, it talks about we're following up on recommendations made by the select committee and the ad hoc committee. We might want to add ourselves to that list so that it's, what came out of those committees, and we're following up on what we're recommending as well. And then to Anita's point here, in that action item, it starts with the roundtable will monitor the actions taken and progress made by the FAA to address. So I think that's where it might be trying to get to some of what you were getting to, and that might be a place that if there's a starting point of maybe the language to try and address some of what you've got. Because I do think you're right. It's not just monitor, but it's how do we actively stay on top of things and whatever the right language for that is.
With number 2 than I am with number 1. Number 1 is, I think, is pretty good.
I'll be the 4th person for monitor. We need to find some different word. I mean, within, or additional words. I mean, we can't impose things, of course, but something more than the word monitor. But I would like to go back to your initial remarks, and maybe I misunderstood it, but are you saying the public is not going to be able to speak on agenda items? And how is that not a violation of the Brown Act?
I am saying that we are working together at this point. This time, these items are set for us to work as a committee together. We will be taking input at the end, and we will probably, as I'm hearing, be coming back. So we will be taking public input as they send it in to the SCSC Roundtable at gmail.com.
So who told you that this was not a violation of the Brown Act? I just called our city attorney.
We are.
And she said it was a
Thank
clear
you.
violation.
Thank you. At this point, we have the option of indicating when we want to have public comment. If we can get through these two items specifically in a timely manner with input, we can then certainly open the public comment period. We have gathered the information over a period since February.
Not the same thing.
Thank
but
you, thank you, thank you. Steve, would you like to address that?
Yeah, and just to be clear, we can take public comment on any of the items on the agenda during the public comment period. The idea was to try to be efficient with this portion of the agenda to have these discussions, because we've all struggled, and Roundtable members have mentioned before, that it's difficult to get through these meetings, and they seem pretty meaty. So if we can get the Roundtable member input here, if there are comments from the public about any of these items leading up to item number 8, we can certainly take their input on those items at that time.
Okay, Elisa.
Thank you. From County of Santa Cruz perspective, we are fully supportive of having a strategic plan. We think having the bounds and guides for this work makes a lot of sense. This being my first meeting, I'm listening to what I'm hearing, and I think always that idea of moving beyond monitoring to full engagement makes a lot of sense to accomplish the mission that's set forth.
Thank you. I think, I'm going to interrupt for just a second. I think it would benefit the public if they got to hear what we have to say before they commented on it ahead of time. So I think this really will benefit you. I think you'll be surprised at what we are going to be saying. I'm not going to take any more of your time. Kathy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. No, I like the strategic plan, and I like the ability to have the strategic plan amendment process. I think that it's good to have a review period and built in there to establish a subcommittee if necessary, and to review the work plan and before going forward. And so I think it's an important component that's been that is part of the plan. And other than that, I'm okay with it. Thank you.
So you're okay with the 4 as you're reading them in a general?
Yes.
Cynthia.
Hi there. I'm happy with the plan that's been laid out. It's a good framework. I will just emphasize, from our point of view, City of Santa Cruz, I want to reemphasize the guiding principle number 2, that one of the guiding principles is that the actions will minimize aircraft noise impacts to residents generally. I also want to very much support the desired result in number 4, an overall reduction in objectionable aircraft noise. That is, we are not moving it from one place to another. We're seeing overall improvements. I do like the idea of moving beyond monitoring to results. Overall, it's a great framework.
Thank you. And Lisa.
Thank you. Actually, this went down more. I appreciated the draft of the strategic plan. I am assuming that we will maybe have a couple iterations of this as we talk about it. I didn't want to get into.
Okay.
Is that not hearing? I didn't want to get into specific edits. I just was going to focus on my general comments to this. First is I want to make sure that the strategic plan is in alignment with the MOU and the bylaws. The MOU contains objectives and the bylaws contain a mission, and I want to make sure they're the same in all of our documents. And actually, I'm not sure they need to be in all of our documents. Maybe we, because there's a chance, I think, of them then getting out of sync. So I would prefer them in one document or the other, but not everywhere. Second, I agree with the comments about monitor. I think everything in here should be more action-oriented. And I can suggest specific edits, but just the general comment that I think everything needs to be more action-oriented. Especially when it comes to monitoring legislation. I would like that to be, we're lobbying, perhaps we're even drafting legislation that we want our federal elected officials to act on. Fourth, when it comes to the ad hoc advisory committee, one of the things we specifically said at that committee was before any of the recommendations we put forth were implemented, we wanted to understand the implications of those. So I want to be very careful in how we've positioned that here, because we have in here several times that we want the FAA to implement the recommendations, and we're going to see how they are doing versus implementing those recommendations. Now, first, especially from the ad hoc committee, I can't speak to the select committee, we said we want to know the implications, and then we would decide which ones we wanted implemented. So I want to be very careful about that. I did hear the comment about environmental concerns, and throughout the document, I think that needs to be included. And then if we could be consistent, I don't want to sound like a broken record on this, but let's just be consistent on the names of the select committee and the ad hoc committee in this document as well as all the other documents, so there's no question about which ones we're talking about. Those were my general comments. A specific comment, I wasn't really sure how we would encourage compatible land use planning efforts among member communities, and that's also the guiding principle 3, talking about land use. I feel like we need to be more specific about how we would do that. There are some forums, the Airport Land Use Commission, there's one for Santa Clara County. I assume there's one for Santa Cruz County, and actually we should pull in San Mateo County because some of our airports fly over during takeoff or landing in San Mateo. And then I want to make sure we're not just focused on procedures and potentially policy revisions. So in goal number 4, there's also technology that might be implemented. So I want to make sure we're not limiting what we can follow up on. So I'd like to have things broader. And this was commented on about the amendment process. What's not specified here is what it takes to amend it. Is it the majority of the roundtable members or supermajority or all of us? Or let's be specific about that one. Thank you.
Thank you. I also wanted to point out, and I'm going to do another go-around, person by person, that we have introduced a new mission statement that is based on the old mission statement that we found in the bylaws, but we will have to address that and to see if this meets your approval to update. So certainly this does trigger talk about bylaw changes and perhaps MOU. In discussions and phone calls with the SAY team and we did try to catch everything that said airplane noise and environmental. So thank you. I know we still need to have all eyes on deck here to make sure that we have done it. This is why this is the best done as a group effort. Steve, any comments now, or should I go around one more time? Okay, Steve Preminger.
I just wanted to ask Steve if he had any comments on the draft that he put forward. Is he going to walk us through it, or do people feel like they know it pretty well? Or, I hate to have us make assumptions and you're going, oh, wait a minute. So just want to make sure we have the ability.
Yeah, it's actually sort of at the pleasure of the roundtable. Happy to take time to step people through it. It seems to me virtually everyone has read it and seems to understand it. So I'm seeing lots of heads shaking, so it doesn't look like that's needed.
So I'll just give Liz and Michelle, who has come in, and I haven't been acknowledged her from Los Altos Hills, an opportunity because I believe you two are the only one who have not spoken yet. Did you have anything you wanted to say, Liz?
Other than the fact that I think this is a very well put together document, and I agree with the mission statement.
Could you speak into the microphone, please?
This is a very well put together document. I believe with the mission statement, you've captured what the roundtable is to do. It's on. It's on. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, and just to a couple of points regarding consistent language that Anita had pulled up, as well as the word monitor, which suggests passive, so changing that to be more of a proactive term. Other than that, this looks really good. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. And Michelle?
I'm I'm really pleased to see that the strategic plan being put together in a very positive tone. I really like the wording being proactive, communicative, and collaborative. So I think this is a great document, but I do think that maybe as the process carry along, it does allow the modification to refine the process based on collecting the feedback. So there should allow some flexibility to change.
So are you saying just normally a strategic plan is set up for 3 years? We have agreed that this was something that we need to work on, develop the draft today and bring back at another time. And then are you saying there needs to be an additional review at some point beyond
Well, this is a draft. I would accept, how many draft are you planning to have? Is this the only draft and you're going to have a final?
Yes, we will have a final.
Okay, well, I think it's great. I really don't have a whole lot besides everybody else has already said that, so.
Okay.
I do have one question on the San Jose letter. Is it time to speak? So San Jose is a very large city. They themselves is over 1 million people population. I don't know how much all combined we have here. I really don't think that the left of San Jose is a good idea to, I mean, I understand that to join this, the Roundtable, the fee is based on the population size. So for them to join, I understand, my guess is the fee for them is like, what, 400,000?
The fee for them was under consideration and adjusted because they are so large.
And I definitely think collaborative with the San Jose is a good idea, and not maybe reduce the fee, not having them pay that much.
Well, we did offer that to them, and they still chose not to. So,
all right.
I think they have other reasons.
That would be my concern.
Yeah,
the fee is my concern.
Steve, would you like to review this document as you have set it up, and then I think maybe we will discuss.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, thanks to all the members for all the input. Thank you for taking the time to read it. I've heard some very consistent themes here in terms of making it a little bit more action-oriented, toning down on the monitoring aspect of it, and certainly liking the proactive part of it. It sounds to me that the members would like to have an opportunity to provide some additional detailed input after the conclusion of this meeting, which, as I mentioned earlier, I think using the same approach that we use for the resolution, we set a date certain for that input to come in. We then take that input, incorporate it into this draft as best we can, and bring it back to a future meeting and discuss it. And Member Hendricks has a comment.
I was trying to catch her up. I'm not stopping. Yeah. Me too. I did, if I can, I have one other thing I'd like to ask about the mission statement, and it's not the changes to it. It's maybe when this comes back, we talk a little bit about how we use it. I want to make sure we don't go ahead and spend a lot of time creating a mission statement, and then no one ever looks at it again. So, you know, I mean, we've all been in and done those kind of things. So, you know, think about how, if nothing else, annually we have to go ahead and relook at it, or, you know, republish it out to ourselves or something. It's just, let's just make sure if we're putting the time in to have this, you know, when we're making changes to our, you know, work plans or something, come up and re-reference, and so that it's, you know, some kind of thing, as opposed to, like I said, just something that we spend a lot of time creating and it gets set on the shelf and we don't look at again. That's, let's make it useful.
Ask if everyone agrees with that statement. If you would indicate by raising your hand, that's not a formal vote. You don't get 2 votes. It looks like it's unanimous that we will tie the mission statement review to the work plan. We've gotten something done. Hooray. I would like to then just briefly go over the items one by one with goal number 1, in case anyone does not have it. Yes.
Just real quick, because you're on a roll, just want to include that of the 4 goals, 2 of the 4 begin with the word monitor. So if you're uncomfortable with monitor in one, you might actually want to look at the first word in every one of the goals. And if you want to put a proactive word in there, maybe that would satisfy everybody.
Madam Chair?
Where are you? Oh, Anita, okay.
In the interest of time, I don't know if we need to go over this more. I think it would be, we'd be well-served, and you're giving us a deadline to submit
I
notes.
understand that. I am changing this mode just a little bit because we are going to open this to public hearing, but it's going to have to be very brief and 1 minute each. So I want to be sure that the entire audience is informed with what we are discussing. Goal number 1 is monitor status of the prior committee recommendations. We will monitor the actions taken and progress made by the FAA in addressing recommendations made by the Select Committee on South Bay Arrival and South Flow Ad Hoc Committee. Glenn, you may have some input on that. Goal number 2, address community concerns. Even I had a question on what does that mean. The Roundtable will serve as the forum for addressing Roundtable member community concerns regarding noise and environmental issues from aircraft operating to and from regional commercial service airports. While the Roundtable is focused on the concerns of its member communities, it is receptive to learning about noise concerns from other communities in the region. And somewhere in there, there's receiving input and addressing that I have a note because I'm working off of an old copy. Goal number 3, monitor legislation and research. The Roundtable will monitor legislation undertaken on the local, state, and federal level to address reduction in aircraft noise. The Roundtable will also monitor research into aircraft noise reduction, including advances in aviation technology that help reduce aircraft noise exposure. Goal number 4, work collaboratively with the FAA. While the Roundtable understands that it is contrary to FAA policy to move aircraft from over one community to another in order to alleviate noise impacts, the Roundtable is committed to working collaboratively with the FAA to address aircraft noise concerns through both procedure revision or development and policy revisions. Steve, do you have any further comments on this?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is there any, Lydia?
Just one quick comment going back to what Glenn had brought up about San Jose City Council and that they feel that they're not represented by this body. So I just have to say that when Palo Alto went to the FAA in DC, a number of us went along with staff. The FAA very clearly and concisely spoke and said that go back and have your Roundtable represent you because they refused to deal with each of the cities. So I just want to remind the Roundtable that this is what FAA had said when we went to visit.
Thank you. Your point very well taken. I appreciate it, Lydia. All right. I have some speaker slips here. Again, it will be 1 minute. This will be on the strategic plan alone. I hope that you will be giving us input on those 4 goals that I just read, because that, and how you feel they should play out. That is where I think we will best benefit from this. Okay. Darlene Yapley.
Ditto on the proactive and the results orientation. One comment on goal number 1, the language should align with the new resolution language. It's worded that we're going to focus on the actions taken by the FAA. What about the actions that they haven't taken? So we need to get the language aligned.
Marie Jo.
I want to make a comment on the process. I think the agenda was published on Friday afternoon, which is just a few days ago. We were never told as the public that we should have provided comments by email to this body, given that we do not know when what is going to be on the agenda. So it is an impossible way for members of this community to participate and provide feedback and input. And many of us have spent tens of thousands of hours on this problem because we live it every day and we have tried to get to solutions. So we do have some knowledge. And yes, Steve is a very accomplished expert, but there is also expertise. And I think what we say is not a waste of time for you people, elected officials, who will never be able to be expert in that topic. So process-wise, I would appreciate if the members of the public could be notified of when to give input and on what. Thank you.
Thank you. Robert Holbrook.
Thank you for the opportunity to comment. I'll be brief. The main comment that I have is that the problems that we're experiencing are partly caused by the FAA, but the root cause is often legislation that the FAA is charged with implementing. So we're not going to get the kind of relief that we want unless we change the rules by which the FAA is bound to operate with. So I think it's important this body include policymakers as well as the FAA in the audience it's trying to target. Second, the objectives throughout, in several places, should include words like "and advocacy" and "implement." Stop with the go beyond the monitoring as has been suggested. And then finally, I'd like to see this body reach out to sister organizations outside this region, as well as within the region. So I hope you'll consider that as part of the strategic plan as well. I'll be sending much more detailed comments in when I have an opportunity to do so. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I have a slip from Karen Porter, who's talking about Brown Act. So if you'd like to speak at this time, I'm hoping you'll speak to the strategic plan, and if you wish to speak in the future, let me know on any other items.
This is a process-related.
Speak into the microphone, please.
Okay. Process-related comment. Brown Act, Government Section 54954.3 provides that every agenda for regular meetings shall provide opportunity for members of the public to directly address the body on any item of interest to the public before or after the body's consideration of the item. If the matter is within the subject matter jurisdiction of the body, two recent cases that have interpreted that code section: Ribicoff versus City of Long Beach, California appellate decision, Kent versus Santa Monica Rent Control Board, Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal decision, upheld or emphasized that limits must be reasonable. And in those cases, they found a 3-minute limit was reasonable. And from my quick reading sitting here, it looked like it was 3 minutes per agenda item, as well as a catch-all time for open comments at the beginning, or excuse me, at the end of the meeting. So I don't think the arbitrary limit of 1 minute per speaker is lawful or fair. Thank you.
Jennifer Landesman.
Thank you. I would like to get some clarification about the roundtable being the only or sole forum for the FAA to get feedback, because communities that suffer from NextGen have been at work now since 2012, 2013, and the FAA reauthorization of 2018 made it clear that communities would like the FAA not just to respond to public officials and to roundtables, but to the American public, and that involves a lot more. I happen to think that a great way to do that is to have proper environmental reviews with the steps clearly stated where the community has involvement. So and I'll speak to that when we get to the IFP Gateway if we have a chance, but I think we should clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer.
Hi, I just wanted to mirror some of the comments that have already been made by the public, especially by Mary Jo, regarding the fact that stuff was posted online for public comment on Friday. We were unaware that we needed to make any formal comments that would be pertinent to this before that time. And so we need to keep that into consideration. Many of the things also that Robert was saying about advocacy in Congress and, as this committee said, about monitoring, I think are important as well. And I did have a question about that Friday deadline that Chairman Bernald had mentioned, how that might pertain, because that is a problem for people who are working. That doesn't give us much time to put together our comments, so I would like that extended at least for the public. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It concludes the speaker slips that I have for number 3. Alistair, if you'd like to come up. Alistair Fife, if you would identify yourself, please, for the record.
Hello, Alistair Fife. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. A glaring omission from the strategic plan is, sure. A glaring omission from the strategic plan is the mission to verify community consensus. The roundtable, if the roundtable is to advise the FAA on the implementation of the recommendations, you should verify that they are backed by community consensus. I believe this is only an issue for 1.2 or 1. The issue is not that it passed by a single vote, but that within 2 months of that vote, Mayor Waldeck wrote a letter to the FAA indicating that it was cast based on a miscommunication. A major regional decision should not be based on a temporary miscommunication. You can fix this pretty readily without reopening or revisiting any of the substantive issues by simply checking back with the select committee members. The packet that I distributed, and I'm sorry about the waste of paper, includes multiple letters, 3 from Los Altos Hills mayors in succession, 2 Santa Cruz mayors in succession, documenting this controversy. Please do not ignore those letters. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, if there's anyone else that would like to speak specifically to the strategic plan, I invite you to come up and introduce yourself and take 1 minute to let us know. Please.
Hello, my name is Stephen Payne. It was mentioned, I think you mentioned that the FAA cannot move the noise from one area to another. I'd like to know when this occurred, since it was moved to our area without our knowledge. Also, throughout your strategic plan, you're mentioning something about monitoring. Some of us have been monitoring the noise for a long time, every single day, 6,000 to 9,000 reports daily. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right. Yes, I see someone wave handing. If, again, you would come up and give us your name so that we...
Shiva, living in River Mark, Santa Clara. I just want to use my 1 minute for this. That's every day, every night. And I'm not as well informed as many of you here. I'd like to see an equitable distribution of airplane flight paths. This is just getting ridiculous. It's a living hell on a daily basis.
Thank you very much. Again, I'm asking only for input on the strategic plan. You can certainly come in with comment again at the end of the meeting with other information that you would like to share with us as a group. I'm going to then move forward. Glenn, looks like you would like to speak.
Yeah, I just wanted to try and clarify or ask a question that will be clarified when all this comes back. And it's about, here, I'm just going to use the word monitoring, but it's the first item where we monitor the status of the prior committees of what's gone on. And I think 2 things. We've kind of said, I think it's been said all along, is that having a regional body to act on behalf of the region and be the interface point with the FAA is a good thing, and I think most people agree with that. That does not change any of the FAA's procedures, that when they go through and they're going to say they're looking at something and they've got to go through all the steps and do their own public notification of what's going on and collect data and all that kind of stuff. Nothing of what we're talking about changes any of that, I'm assuming, of what goes on. And then also the fact that we're saying we're having a regional body to interface does not preclude a city from going ahead and saying, writing a letter or being able to try and have their own interface with the FAA. I think the piece I was talking about is a city saying, here, I want to have an interface with the FAA on one of the prior committees. Because it was mentioned by the public, well, here, go back and talk to the prior committee members. Those committee members don't represent their bodies anymore of what goes on. So I just want to separate out that having a regional body is a very good thing. It doesn't preclude the requirements that the FAA has for all of their notification. They don't get to just say, well, we told the roundtable and they didn't do any of their other notifications. And it doesn't preclude the ability from, like, the city of Sunnyvale to write our own letter or have our own comments that go out. So this is just, it's how to try and work collectively together. It's not trying to necessarily restrict what we're doing. And so that's kind of my thought. And when you come back with all the written up language, you can either agree or disagree with that.
And if I might, Madam Chair, one point that Glenn raises that's been a bit problematic is that if this is the regional body that's speaking on this issue, it should in fact speak with one voice if it can agree to do that. The challenge has been, since its inception, that we have a lot of letters going out to the FAA from various cities which of course is their right to do that. The challenge for the FAA is they don't know who they're working with or who they're responding to. And so in our discussions with them of trying to get them to take action on what we're doing, they may have input from this group, they may have input from various cities. So it's really in this group's best interest to act as a single body, to take those actions, to funnel city concerns through this group if that can be done. It just adds complication and essentially undermines the value of the roundtable if everyone's working individually.
Discovered in, when we first formed, that letters had been sent out individually, by individuals, by communities, by cities, and elected bodies, and that they didn't necessarily have the proper information about who was in that position when they sent the letters. And so the letters went missing or unanswered. And again, this is why it is beneficial that we have this connection, legitimate connection with the FAA, so that we have the point of contact, so that we know at any one time that the FAA will respond and have heard what has been submitted to us. I think we all are at the point where we do not want any more delays.
Yeah, and I think that that derived really from the gap between the end of the other committees and the formation and beginning of work of this group. And I would hope to address Glenn's issue that going forward, if we have issues where we do not have complete agreement, that our reports and communications with the FAA would also reflect why we might not have 100% agreement, rather than having individual cities going off and writing what amount to minority reports. If we can avoid that, I think that's a good idea.
And in answer to that, if we don't exist because we have fragmented, then how are we going to get an effective response from the FAA? Fabi, is there anything else that you would like to add to this or not? I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I am.
Thank you. No, I just want to stress what you just said. We did have a conversation about how to handle the correspondence because we are still receiving correspondence from various cities, and they are directed to either Raquel Gervin, the regional administrator, or Dan Elwell, the FAA acting administrator. So in order for us to have a handle on the correspondence, as well as to make sure that the roundtable, that all of you are informed of what your peer communities are saying, we're trying to funnel everything through the roundtable. So you may be receiving some correspondence in the near future to that effect if we hear from you individually. And I just want to make another point. Earlier, there was a question about the FAA being responsive to the communities. We do have an email address, and we still respond to individual citizens. You may get a template response, but it's going to be the same response, very similar to what everybody else is getting. If there is an individual case where we need to look at that data, then we will, but just keep that in mind as we move forward, and we'll share that email with the chairwoman.
Fabi or Will, we're in the Western District, correct?
Yes, service area.
How many roundtables or bodies are in the Western District that you are dealing with at any one time?
Currently, we have 6, and I can tell you that right now we're working with the city of Burbank to form, that's in Southern California, and we're working with Sacramento to form. But currently, we have Oakland, San Diego, LAX, San Francisco, here. Not yet. And Hawthorne is standing up. It's a smaller airport, but they have a lot of issues because they're neighbors to LAX.
Thank you. All right.
And I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah,
One more
sorry.
thing.
Fabi, yes.
Sorry. That is the regional office. We cover 4 states. The Western Service Center has an additional 4 roundtables that they support, and it's the same team that provides all the work for all of you and all of us here.
So we're not special.
I'm sorry.
We are special.
You are in our
but we're
eyes.
among a pool of specials, a
Yes.
large pool of specials, right?
And truly, we want everybody to feel like a priority, and we are moving little pieces along for each one of you, so.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lydia.
So I think, in terms of, I think we need to be able to provide to the general public the confidence that we will move along in a timely manner. Oftentimes, these flight procedures come out, and then we have a 60-day in order to make comments or to do something further. So time is of the essence at that point, and I think that we need to be able to reassure our community members that we will be responding in a timely manner. And so I look for you to also incorporate that into our strategic plan about how you're going to address and to give reassurance to our communities.
Where do you think that might fall?
I'm going to have to send it in to you. I haven't had a chance to look at it. As I'm listening to all the comments, I'm thinking that that is an essential part of how we can reassure our communities that we will be responding in a timely manner.
Okay, Glenn, did I see you indicate you wanted to speak?
Yeah, I was going to wait till the end, but I just want to bring it up now based on what the FAA just said. And I'd like to be able to ask if we've been told here this morning that there's an FAA community engagement officer. William's going to, but could something be done to explain, is your role to figure out the plan for how to do community engagement, or are you the point of contact? Is the community engagement officer, do you have an email that the public would reach out to you as opposed to somebody else? I'm just trying to understand, a little bit more about what that is and how that works. And is that at kind of a macro process level, or are you an entry point for our public to be able to ask questions of? And if the answer to that is yes, could you give us your email contact? Or what is the mechanism you'd want us to use to contact, if that's the case?
I'll let her start. So we have 3 community engagement officers throughout the country. Will is going to help us under the Regional Administrator's Office, and he is going to be attending probably every roundtable, and he's going to be the lead and will help us in being more strategic about how we conduct outreach. As far as how do we contact him, I would encourage you to continue to go through the roundtable chair. She will send the communications to Raquel, and until we figure it out, Raquel, our Regional Administrator, will assign the tasks as appropriate.
So I think what I just heard you said is that he's a FAA community engagement process officer for how to go ahead and create what the engagement is. I'm trying to understand, are you creating how we're going to engage, or are you the person we engage?
We're still in the development, in the process or development stages of what the individuals are going to be doing. He is a community engagement officer. That's his title.
How did this job placement come about? I mean, what drove, I believe it was federal legislation?
Yeah, October 2018, there was an answer to the Reauthorization Act as a mandate to hire a noise ombudsman in the FAA to help deal with the noise issues. This is not a Western regional problem, it's a national problem. And so therefore, the FAA then took it and they have hired 3. I am the second one in the FAA worldwide to be hired to answer your issues in dealing with noise. So it's a brand new role. That's why I'm here to engage, to understand all the issues, and to have some engagement with everyone to try to work on a plan to forge ahead to try to deal with some of these issues that you guys are dealing with, and to have some actionable, measurable deliverables. So this is the starting point of what you've been asking for, and that's why we're moving forward. Does that answer your question?
Not fully.
Okay, well, keep going.
But because an ombudsman, I mean, if I had I can never say that word, but if we had that role for anything, that's where people reach out to that person to talk to, about what goes on. And so I guess maybe what might be helpful is if you're saying you're going to try and define some actionable things and things like that, maybe in our next meeting, you guys could come back with some more clarity of what this role is, how it fits into the overall process, that when something's going through the process, who we communicate and where this role does or doesn't fit in with what goes on. I would just like more clarity, because I'm still a little confused. Are you guys putting together how you're going to do overall macro communication, or are you the communication point? And I'm hearing it's not the communication point, because if it's 3 for the entire United States or international, that's probably not quite enough. Ford probably do it, but.
Glenn, I think you're providing a real good segue for us to go into our work program, because we need to prioritize where that'll fit. Yes, Steve?
So I'm getting a sense that the FAA is hearing the kinds of things that are going on here all across the country, and you guys are trying to figure out how are we going to deal with that. What we've done so far hasn't worked. And so if you're going to keep coming to the meetings, Will, and listening and hopefully giving feedback, I think that will help us, because it seems to me this is all an evolution.
It
Is
is
that a
an
fair
evolution.
statement?
It is. It's evolving, and like I said, the other part to this whole thing, there are a lot of complexities to all of this, and there's not a one-stop shop answer to all of it. So that's why we have put things in place to try to answer some of these complexities that everyone is having, and with sensitivity, and that you also see an FAA representative here that we are engaging, and we are speaking, and we do hear you. We're taking notes, and we're trying to understand. So,
Madam Chair,
Yes, thank you, Will.
in my role as facilitator,
Yes, please.
this has been a tremendous conversation and discussion about this particular item. As we all can tell, we're woefully behind schedule on our agenda. But I think a couple things in mind. One is we need to wrap this one up in some manner. It could be the Roundtable's pleasure to make a motion to allow for additional member input and continue this to a future agenda item or some other action along those lines. And then once we've done that, given the time we have left, I suggest that we cut at least one of the...
Hold on, can I go so moved to what you just said?
Sure.
Second.
Then do you need the 1 second? I mean, one person is second, or is it good for?
It was Hendrickson.
It was Henry, okay. No, who moved, who's seconded?
Glenn first,
Anita
Lydia second.
Enander, we'll go for that, okay. And you were saying?
So now that that's resolved, yeah, you have to vote on it, that's
Yes.
true. Yeah,
Yes,
go ahead.
yes.
Go ahead and vote on it.
So do I have, it's your pleasure to move on all 4, well, first of all, mission statement, and then do you wish to, with the idea that we will include that with a review yearly with the work program? Then also, do you want to divide that into each individual goal and say that, yes, they are adequate, or do we take it as a body with all 4?
No, I was really trying to go with what Steve's motion was, is that the body can go ahead and continue to give feedback to him. He's going to go ahead and put it all together and come back at a future item where we can vote on it.
But I'm just clarifying that that does include the 4
Yes.
items as they exist, plus the mission statement.
Yes.
With the qualifier.
In the strategic plan, not the work plan.
Absolutely, I'm only
Okay.
talking
Yes.
strategic plan, yes.
Yes.
Okay, we've heard that, and Ed, are you
Oh, I'm
ready
just
to
getting
vote?
ready to vote, getting ready to vote.
Okay, all those in favor of that
Aye.
motion?
Aye.
The entire strategic plan, making sure also that we have all eyes on noise and environment and the naming of the committees and monitoring. I think we've captured it all, and anything else that we've heard. Throw in the whole works. So are we all in favor of that? Please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, it moves unanimously. And now, with permission from the Roundtable, in
Madam Chair?
working with timeliness.
Sorry.
Yes.
Can we set Friday, August 9th as the point at which we would receive roundtable input, written input on this?
All those in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Any abstention? August 9th it is for input. Okay. We have, Steve has already indicated that to be working in a timely manner, that we should continue the discussion of the priority of the IFP Gateway until a date I would like your input if it is a high enough priority for a date certain, meaning August, or if it's for a continuation to a later date.
So I don't really care where this one comes back, but I have a concern of being able to try and get a date for when we're going to hear the FAA's response to the ad hoc report. So it's hard for me to say a specific date for that thing when I really want a specific date for the other thing. So I would say you guys control the agenda and stuff. I would just raise my hand, go, you should try and bring these things back as reasonably possible.
As soon as.
And that being able to get response back to hear the FAA's verbal comments to the ad hoc report is important for me.
Okay.
Maybe anybody else, but it's important for me.
My only comment on what Glenn just said is that since they've pulled Pirate 2 from the gateway, because it's published, I think we're still waiting to know, like, what did they really do and why? So on the overall gateway thing, yeah, what Glenn said, but with respect to Pirate 2, I think we need to know what they actually decided to do.
We
as soon
can
as
certainly
possible.
inform that when we start on the work program and do the prioritization. And so I'd like to have us plow through. Do I have consensus that we then will be continuing item number 4, discussion of the IFP gateway, until into the near future, without a date certain? Ed, yes? Okay. All those in favor? Aye, and none opposed. Okay, thank you. Okay, that as soon as possible within our working on the work program. Jennifer, I see that you have indicated, Jennifer Landesman, that you would like to speak on that, but I would ask you, I mean, you can speak at this time. You probably will be just as effective if you speak at the next time when we discuss this.
It's very specific. It's tied to the first.
Please speak to the microphone so we recur to you.
My comment is tied to the first discussion item, and I just want to throw this in there, which is that the information we're getting about the IFP gateway is all great, but nobody really understands it, and I've been following this for many years. And what would be really helpful is if next to each of the items, there would be some sort of indication of where we are on the environmental process, and Pirate is a great example. And then tie that into FAA's community involvement plan that they presented a couple of years ago, or idea, where you do follow the J100.41 process. And we don't want to be seeing the IFP gateway as it affects us after the fact, because there's a step prior to when it was published that we should have been in. And so this whole dance is a little bit complex, but I think it ties in. And I would disagree that the Roundtable does one thing and then the FAA does its own thing. It's very much a joint process, and the whole idea of working together. So that would serve the communities, and thus the Roundtable could be really effective. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, then we are going to move on to item number 5, establish the SCSC Roundtable Work Program. Steve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In a follow-up document to the strategic plan, we prepared for the Roundtable's consideration a draft work program. This is intended to take all of the input that we've heard, or the vast majority of it, to date through the various meetings we've had, through the various documents that are out there, and to put together for the Roundtable's consideration a work program which they can add to, delete, change, modify. This is what is going to determine what gets done during the course of the year. Almost as equally important of each of these items is the priority that you give to it. And you can use a scale of 1 to 5, you can use a scale of 1 to 10, but the reality is we can't do everything at once, and so you need to think about what's really important to you and where you want us in the Roundtable to focus its efforts. So in consideration of each of these items, as a group, we would like consensus from the Roundtable to assign priority levels to each of these items. But it's open, just as the strategic plan was, for general discussion and consideration. This is for your use, and then ultimately it will drive the work that we do over the coming year.
What would be the most effective method of discussing this for you, your benefit?
Certainly, again, as we did with the strategic plan, if members have specific comments about items they want to keep, if they, as Ed did with the strategic plan, if he thinks it's great and people think it's great, want to keep it, that's fine. If there's certain items people want deleted, that's fine. But ultimately, whatever group of work program items we wind up with, we want a priority for every single item.
Very good.
Madam
So-
Chair, can I, I'm sorry.
Yes, Anita.
Can I suggest an approach?
Please.
And that would be that we similarly set a deadline of August 9 for feedback as to the content, and I'm talking only about the content of what's here, and whether they're the right items, whether they're stated the way we want it, or whether there's additional items, and that we then devote time at either the next meeting or the following, depending on what the chair and our advisor or consultant say is best, on kind of setting priorities or setting sequences. Because in some cases, if it's important at all, the timing is such that you have to make it a number one priority or you lose a chance. Even if it's a B instead of an A, you still got to do it now.
Yes.
So in that, we would need to be guided to some extent by Steve on those kinds of issues. But I think that has to be facilitated. That's not something we can do in priorities. We can't really do in isolation because of that reason.
Absolutely, I agree. Thank you. So does anyone else have any input on that?
I have a broader question around the structure of the work plan, and I think I heard it in the discussion of the strategic plan, is how do these items relate to the 4 goals? As I look through it, I can draw my own conclusion, but are sort of integrating those with the goal structure would be helpful to understand how we're being actionable on those 4 goals.
I agree. I think we'll benefit from continuing this so that once we have these laid out and our technical team can sit down and assess how that works since they have experience on that, if we are agreeable to letting them match up the items as need be. Steve, yes?
I guess one of the things I'd like to hear or get feedback on in terms of to be determined is a couple of levels. One is how important is it and how achievable is it? So that we may be able to, put important and achievable as a goal, not important, difficult to achieve, and sort of get a hierarchy of things so that, A, we come up with some victories. I think people would like to see that, and address what we all feel is so critical to get resolved.
Great. Okay, with that, we have some general ideas. I'm going to work around the table if that's okay. Liz, any specific comments just on overall, and then I think it will benefit by taking each item, a roll around one time with each item, and then sort of try to get a sense of where we are for our priorities. I mean, this is going to have to be real loosey-goosey, because it could very well be that we go around the table once or twice and we find, oh, we need to bump this up or change that. Anything overall that when you were looking at this, you felt that we might have missed or should have fleshed out in any other way?
No, not at this time. However, I do want to echo what Steve said, was considering, when we prioritize these, considering the length of time each will take and where it is in the process so that we can have success early.
Yes. Thank you. I love hearing that. Michelle.
The TBD for the work plan, I don't understand, or I'm confused that when is the TBD going to have an exact date, and how is that going to determine? You have all of the priority. I'm confused how that priority got landed.
Sure. So let's say that the roundtable acts to continue this item and to provide input to us by August 9th, has been suggested. We then revise the work program based on that input. We will bring that back to you, and at that meeting where it's further discussed, we want the roundtable members in a consensus mode to place a priority in place of the words TBD as to what's the importance of that item. On a scale of 1 to 10, is it a 1, not that important, or is it a 10, highly important, and what the roundtable wants us to focus our work on. So ultimately, there will be numbers in that slot that will indicate your priority for each of those items.
The priority is represented by number, like a numeric number, 1, 2, 3, 4, or medium, high, low, unimportant?
We could do it any way as long as a group, we understand
Okay.
that it's something we want to emphasize or not spend a lot of time on.
Okay, thank you.
I think we have more than enough on that list, and I think 1 to 10 is a great way to rate it, 10 being highest priority.
Okay. Lydia, any comments? General at this point.
General, right. So basically, I just want to say thank you for the development of this program, this document. Again, to reiterate what I said for the strategic plan in terms of giving the confidence and reassurance to the general public about the timeliness. And then, so similar to what I said about the strategic plan, we need proactive approach in this document as well, and words have to go beyond the monitoring and tracking to analyzing and proposing new actions and recommendations. I do like the idea of your procedure development subcommittee, and we should be adding one more committee, one more subcommittee to this, which is legislation. The FAA operates under national rules and regulations that are approved by Congress, so we need to advocate for changes there. Example, supplemental noise metrics or the requirements to include communities in procedure development, which is not in place today. We cannot just track legislation. We have to be proactive. We must advocate. Number 2, I'd like to add 2 more fields under each action. 1, desired outcome. To articulate what success looks like, we should identify the desired outcome. This will emphasize our results orientation and where actions are leading to. 2, roles and responsibility to clarify who does the work. Roundtable, staff resource, or a specific subcommittee with subsequent roundtable review. Number 3, currently the work plan item, for example, 2.2.6, additional San Jose airport operations, this should be revised to include airport growth and expansion to include San Jose Airport, Oakland Airport, as well as San Francisco Airport. Growth and expansion mean different things to me. Expansion to me means the addition of space, square footage, etc. However, growth to me means the growth of operations, which is the increase in the number of flights, etc. And before, I think you've said that we will gather the inputs and come back again, so I appreciate that process. It's worked well. Thank you.
Glenn. Again, overall general.
Yeah, I think I would encourage staff to send out to us a list of these things, and however you want us to prioritize it so that you get that information from us, and then you guys aggregate it somehow, you know, do some math or something, so you get an initial prioritization from us, so then you can kind of bring it in and go, here, this is what it is, and then we can argue from something, because otherwise I don't know how you're going to get to any kind of prioritization.
Is this something separate than from going through each item by item here? And I mean, if we were to take each item by item here,
Okay, if you want to
and
do it
then
that
ask
way,
for
sure.
it to be prioritized? Are you looking for something else?
I was thinking, if we're going to sit here and try and get to, in this first meeting here, what's 1 through 10, if there's 10 of them, there's not enough hours in the meetings to
Okay.
do that. So I was suggesting, and because one of the things that's going to have to come in, we are going to have to get much more focused
Yes.
on what this is. I mean, you're expanding to try and start taking a look at, you know, airport operations growth. That's a whole different kind of thing, and especially to pull in Oakland. I mean, this is where just, I think we need to have a list and get to where we're focused on the 1, 2, and 3 thing, and everything else is just going to have to wait for a little while. But I guess we'll get to that when we talk individually.
And some of that will be informed by education and training on what federal legislation is in place regarding the growth of an airport versus saturation or capacity in the air. So again, that's something that we need to add on to trainings for going forward. Anita, a general thing, I'm ready now. If anybody else has any comments, I don't want to put you on the spot for specifically, but I would like to start going through one by one.
You want to go through one by one?
I mean, going down and
There's 18 items. You really don't want to go through all 18 items,
I
do you?
want to know, this is a high priority, a low priority at this point, just starting off again, to give us some sense? Or are we going to throw anything out? Or are we going to add anything more?
Could I suggest, it's kind of a little bit of what maybe we just go around the room and each of us say what our top 3 items are and whether or not we have any quick, descriptor of it, as opposed to everybody going through every single one. I just don't know how we're going to do it.
I don't think I have enough information on each item to make that judgment. I do agree with Lydia. We need the desired outcome. We also need to define when it's done. These things tend to be open-ended. I also not sure where this GBAS falls into which of these items, but I think that if that comes to pass, that may solve at least some of these issues. But personally, I couldn't go through these items. I don't have enough information to rank them today.
Okay, speaking to GBS, I think it's important that we all, as a roundtable, understand what GBS is. So I think first and foremost, we need a training. So perhaps that would be your priority, if that's something you're mentioning.
Right. Is that actually on the list, though?
It comes in under ongoing roundtable member training, and it's something that I actually listed out as something that I felt was essential so that we could move forward with discussing GBS.
Oh, okay. Well, personally, I'd break that out as a separate item. But
Yeah,
anyway.
to me, there's things that, these are really actions that we need, things that we want to take care of. Training to understand so you can be intelligent about your input on a particular action, that's a process thing. That's not a separate action item to me. Understanding GBAS so that you can speak intelligently and do about it is a part of making good decisions on a couple of these items. It's not a separate action per se.
Well, it may be in scheduling a training.
It may be in scheduling, but I don't view training as a separate thing here among the 18 items.
Okay, looking over these items as we're seeing them, what I have heard so far today and in past meetings is Pirate, South Flow, Select Committee, Surfer to Big Sur. I have heard maybe some trainings. I have heard GBAS. I have heard noise and airport growth. So I would like a sense from us today as to your individual. I mean, this is reiterating what we have heard. This is where these items came to be. But this is what I'm asking. I mean, do you, looking through, so I realize it's a lot of information to process in one meeting. But if you want to give us some guidelines off the top that give us your priorities as a roundtable body on what we want to see happen, because we have had numerous requests for setting up a kind of criteria that can measure success. And I would like to know what we're looking for in success. Are we looking for an answer to South Flow anymore? Are we looking for more input on where in the timeline or the process or the pipeline is Big Sur? Are we looking for the need to have training so that we can work more effectively as a body? Are we looking for and some of you have brought this up, I think it was Robert Holbrook, in establishing a collaborative relationship between the Roundtable and, as he used, the sister organizations. I have done that, and I have something to report at the end of the meeting. So I would like to hear from you, your individual things that you flipped through here. This doesn't mean we're going to take everything else off the table. But I want to hear at least at the end for the end of this meeting what it is that you want. Right off the top. Steve. Okay. Liz, do you have anything that's you think is a really good next step? I want you guys to be able to inform me when I set up an agenda. And I've got to do that in a couple of days. We've got to start talking so that we can communicate with the FAA and we know budget is on there. And that's in here. So
it looks like it's broken down into actual noise problems like surfer and nighttime, and then you've got procedural issues, and then you've got education. So maybe if we break it into 3 areas, then we can prioritize within those areas. I don't know if that would be helpful or not.
So it was noise?
Noise, procedural, and education.
Thank you. Ms. Shaw.
Yeah, I have something to say. Given that this is a draft work plan, it is a great initiative that we can dive into further. However, there's about 11 to 15 TBDs here. And I asked earlier, are we going to go the numeric index, like a 1 through 15 priority? If we're going to that, I think it will be a lot better to me. It seems like I don't have all the information right now to say this is priority number 1 through 15. But if you can implement this as an online interactive or survey type, like say, take, for example, use SurveyMonkey, and then you have poll all of us here to say, okay, here's your priority, and this is all the information you have. If you convert this into an online survey, then we can rank them 1, 2, 3, 4. So all of us are going to vote, and then whatever come up to the maximum, the highest vote will be the priority number 1, and number 2, number 3. So that way you have a very systematic, managed way to really have a solid data to represent what is the highest priority. I would say that the online survey, interactive online survey, will be the good way to go for this.
Okay, Ed, thank you, Michelle.
I'm afraid we're getting a little out over our skis, and I'm too far ahead than what I wanted to be. I would like to, I'm prepared to make a motion after I hear from the public that we give feedback in a short period of time that you need to put this on next agenda, and we prioritize these as 1 to 10 as was suggested, and at that point, come up. I don't think I'm ready to do that right now and prioritize, and I would like to hear from the public, see if they have a priority, and then, like I said, I'd be willing to come back and make a motion that we do this for the next meeting. And one thing, just quick correction, I think item 2.26, there's 2 of them, and the second one should be 2.27. Thanks.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. Lydia, any further comments?
No, I think I'd like to send my priorities to you for consideration.
Okay, good. And Glenn?
So I'll be, slightly different. I think I'm knowledgeable. We've talked about every single one of these items in this in one or more of these meetings here.
Yes.
And I'm prepared to go ahead and give a list, and I can give you my list right now.
Thank you. Anita?
Mine's pretty easy. Our job is fix the noise. So 2.2, 1 through whatever, to me are the big ones. But then making sure that we understand how we're measuring things, which is the baseline, and that we get our oar in the water early on GBAS, because it's not necessarily the be-all and end-all, and it could end up worse. Everything else comes after that.
Thank you very much. Steve?
So I'll go with 2.4.5, the baseline noise data, as well as understanding GBAS, wherever that falls into.
Thank you. Elise?
So from County of Santa Cruz's perspective, we have a pretty simple focus as provided by our board, or a majority of the board, through resolution, and that is around reducing the noise for those who are currently impacted, and not then moving the noise to another community. So it's really about an overall noise mitigation approach to this. So that is our number 1 priority.
Thank you very much. Kathy?
Thank you. I feel like, there are a lot of topics that have been discussed, previously between the ad hoc and the select committee. If there are any of those items that are easily deliverable, that would help us move things along, and also be able to show the general public as well as our cities that we are, definitely taking action and moving along. But in terms of, in some of the items, definitely, if I didn't say noise monitoring and reporting was a big issue for my community, then they'd fire me. So definitely noise monitoring and reporting, and of course, additional operations at San Jose.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cynthia?
I generally will be happy to submit more detailed priorities, but I can say for us, the whole issue of the Big Sur surfer paths is a priority. Related to that, better understanding and focus on 2.4.4, which is the FAA environmental review process and baseline noise data.
Thank you. And Lisa?
So I think it's important that we get these work items correct. So I would like to have the opportunity to provide input on them and maybe tweak a little bit how they are characterized. So I would still like to do that before we have the final prioritization. I think Anita was spot on when she raised that issue. I have quite a bit of input on these, and again, I don't want to wordsmith here, but it's similar to my comments on the strategic plan, where we need to make sure we're not limiting ourselves, and that we use the right names, and that we broaden it beyond just noise. But if I have to give a priority today, I have two, and that is following up on the ad hoc committee on South Flow arrivals, and then not just tracking legislation, but being proactive about legislation. It takes a long time for that to happen. I think we need to get going now on that.
Okay. Excuse me, I'm taking notes here myself. I will defer to all of you and the inputs. As chair, I think that's only fair. Again, I do want to indicate that in formulating this document, ESA did an amazing job of capturing all the input that has occurred prior to this meeting, whether it was through public comment or emails or letters, and even outside information that has come in, and also input from the congressional offices and input from the FAA too. So I thank everyone, and even Bert, who has been so good here, and so quiet. I am curious to find out from you if there's anything that in the looking over this material that you have felt that would stand out as something that we should pay attention to.
Well, obviously, it's going to be the following the mandate of the Select Committee. But beyond that, it's at the committee's desire. Sorry. And going from there, it's going to be where the particular attention is needed at the time.
You have participated in the San Francisco Roundtable for so many years now. Is there anything that you can tell us that comes out of that stands out in what we have as a work program as we've been asked for achievables, doables, success?
With any work program, you want to make sure that you follow it even after completion, or what's deemed as completion of it. Just keep it on the wings, back burner, but monitor it and make sure that it's doing what you want it to do. As far as the hot items that can't be done at the moment, you may have to back burner them, but keep them going. And so that's one of the items that we found was particularly poignant for us.
And that back burning can come because of required processes that have to occur along the way? And so there's no way to...
Studies or whatever needed to be done, something like that. So it need to be back burnered for a little bit, and just follow the dates given on that, and then when it's due, schedule it back up, bring it forward.
Thank you. And FAA, any input at this point?
I just want to say that I think you are all on the right track. I mean, you're talking about the key issues. As you look at the noise, it'd be really helpful if you prioritize which procedures are of most interest to you, but you're certainly on the right track, and that will help us in helping you, whether it's in the training if you decide that's your priority, or if it's noise if that's your priority. But other than that, it was a good meeting. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. In terms of you being able to respond, I'd like to get feedback again so that everyone knows that we have regular conversations with ESA, me, you, and the congressionals on trying to understand what has occurred during the meetings and what we have heard said and what you have heard said and what we're hoping that the FAA will achieve in that. There was some question about timeliness, 30 days, 60 days. You we've indicated in telephone conversations that, and I alluded to it in talking about how large the Western District is and how many people, how many organizations you are responding to, that you need at least 30 days to respond to certain items. And with what Bert just said, when certain things are in a stage in the process, it could be possible that it's not appropriate to come with technical staff to report on a specific thing, even though we've asked you 30 days in advance. How does that work? How does that play out?
So that's an accurate statement, but even though you give us 30 days in advance notice, if there's a lot of things that we need to look into, then it may take longer. So the process could involve a lot more people or review, or maybe time to look at. So it just helps if you narrow down those questions. And I'm not sure if I answered, Mary Lynn, I'm not sure if I answered your question.
I think it'll be good enough for now. Just to let us know that we are, as a roundtable body, trying to reach out to you and make things happen as fast as they can, but there are other outside situations that do impact reports coming to us, although I think you've heard expedite, right?
We have. We
Okay,
heard it
good.
here, we've heard it in our private conversations, and yes.
Okay, good.
Madam Chair, can I get a point of clarification
Anita.
on something? On one of these items with respect to nighttime operations, the solution to that, or the improvement in that, is not necessarily an FAA issue. I think it's partly affects whether San Jose enforces its curfew and its fine structure. So before I provide feedback on that issue, can you or Steve clarify whether it's appropriate for us to be wanting to make recommendations as to those kinds of things that are clearly airport operations and maybe outside of the purview of FAA?
Yeah, Anita, certainly the roundtable can make recommendations on anything that it wants. It's then up to the airport, if it relates to fine structures, to take that information and take whatever action they feel is appropriate. All airports are subject to the Aircraft Noise Capacity Act of 1990, where it's very difficult to either enact new restrictions or change the ones that they currently have. So it would be a tough nut to get an airport to put new restrictions in place or to tighten up the ones that they have, just as a general statement. I think part of the idea about the nighttime issue was because of the large impact of noise at night, it's a place to focus on if we can make changes in that area, not necessarily related to airport operations, but perhaps more procedures or where aircraft are flying, for example, over the bay in San Francisco at night. We can get a big benefit from making changes at night.
Thank you.
We are quite far behind. We have 5 minutes to get through the rest of the agenda and include public speaking, public comment. I hope that since I heard from Ed that we all agree that we will postpone the discussion with input from the community and our own roundtable members by, what did we say, August 5th? 9th, thank you. I am going to give you all a chance as the public to speak, but I also would like to have you be able to find out what we're doing on the resolution, and I'd like to move forward on that. So I do have speaker slips. I will honor those, but certainly if you know that you have an opportunity to weigh in on the items that we have just covered in the work program only, in this particular case, and you would be willing to forego speaking, it would be greatly appreciated by all of us. Marie-Jo, work program only. With the idea you still can write to us.
Thank you. I want to talk about subcommittees. In my view, this roundtable is an executive body that should review analysis and recommendation made by subcommittees who then investigate topics and issues in detail. This would be the effective use of resources to achieve results in a timely fashion. So the draft of the work program has a procedure subcommittee. That's great. I would second what Councilmember Cruz said. I would recommend a legislative committee to look at legislation and policies. It's very important. The FAA operates under federal rules, and that impacts everything they do. This roundtable cannot just track legislation. It must propose language, and it must advocate for new legislation. And to do that, you need a subcommittee. So let me give you an example of what a legislative action could be. The DNL metric threshold of 65 dB today determines whether the impact of a change is significant or not. That 65 dB is an arbitrary threshold that the FAA uses as the rule. In Europe, that threshold is 55 dBs. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Darlene.
In looking at the work plan, there were over 20 items, so thank you for being comprehensive. We recognize a lot of those in there. Marie Jo and I created a visual because I think it was hard to understand how they relate to each other. Comparing a work group committee versus training is kind of a different thing. So the visual that you're seeing in front of you, you should all recognize the items. 3 major categories: subcommittees, administrative, and training. And the just changed a couple names. You see the edits on there. Put environmental review process in the procedure development process because that's part of the procedure development, and added a legislative policy box. So the main change is instead of saying SJC, it says the word airports because we're all concerned about all 3 airports. It's not just one airport in terms of growth and other activity that they're doing. And then lastly, you can cut and paste, move these around, combine them. It's just a different way of looking at managing the work plan and how to prioritize it. So I'll be selling T-shirts of it as well.
Lovely. Thank you. And you'll be donating us to support the Roundtable with the money thank you very much. That might be a conflict of interest. Robert Holbrook.
The work plan, I think, has gotten us past vision, mission, strategy into objectives and goals. And I'm afraid that one of the troubles I have with it is that it kind of conflates the two a little bit. As I see it, there are initiatives that we want to tackle. And those initiatives will each want to have a component that addresses education, to bring people up to speed, a component that may involve technical evaluation and recommendations, a component that may involve how are we going to get this implemented? Is it working the FAA? Is it working legislation? Is it working with our Congress members, one of whom has just been appointed the chair of the subcommittee on health within the Energy and Commerce Committee, which has been referred a bill on the Quiet Communities Act dealing with health limits. It's not just about legislation. So I think what I'd like to see is 2 committees that we set up at least. One is a technical working group, and a second is a policy implementation committee that goes beyond just legislation, but how are we going to get this done?
Thank you very much. Jennifer Landesman.
Thank you. I see this more as if you are able to articulate what's happening on the ground to FAA, that's going to help inform FAA decisions. And I feel that there's sometimes a lot of lost in translation. So when FAA is hearing expedite, 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 does that mean a categorical exclusion? Can you substantiate that noise will be reduced when you transfer, that emissions will go down? We need those baselines before FAA is expediting. And what does it mean? So I really encourage, we're talking about wins and we want victories. A victory will be if you're able to articulate the things that have not been articulated yet. Let's not repeat. Don't forget that the Roundtable in San Francisco presided over NextGen. No questions asked. Not even about data. Not a single, where are the planes going to fly? How low? How many? Please, if you just keep it simple and know that our voices have not been heard yet, I think you'll be able to help us, and that's a victory.
Thank you very much. Jennifer, no name, last name, to differentiate.
Hi, I understand that this is very difficult because this is not only procedural but tactical. In other words, what your actual priorities are, and each city is going to have their own priorities. So it becomes kind of difficult. I would probably divide this into something procedural and tactical priorities. And then, as Robert had said, as far as processes, maybe have subcommittees, again, as far as a legislative subcommittee and maybe a technical subcommittee to help you kind of maneuver through things. And again, as far as cities, of course, I'm Sunnyvale, so
I have my own priorities, but I think that's how it has to be divided up. And I think most of the folks here made some very good points. So thank you.
Thank you very much. That ends my cards. And thank you for following the time. I appreciate that. In interest of time, I am going to move. Oh, yes, please. If you would identify yourself, please.
Yeah, sorry, George Wiley from the San Ernest Valley. I think we need to look back to the original comment made by Anna Eshoo when she commissioned the select committee, which was, this is a regional problem, requires a regional solution. And if you look at the things that were handed out in the on your website with regard to today's agenda, we are not in agreement. There are some words as hostile as this is shameful. I find that in one of those comments. I find that very degrading.
If I may, are you speaking to our work plan?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was general.
No, this isn't, not yet. You can come back.
All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. We are now moving on to the Roundtable's resolution regarding the Roundtable as the official body for future actions regarding the Select and South Flow Ad Hoc Committee.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
We took no action on the last item.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Moving
So-
right forward. So Ed, thank you for catching that.
I just want to make a motion that we all take our input on these 18 items and submit it back by August 9th for prioritization.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Anita? Thank you very much. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? None. So we will see you all back here. Any feeling on whether you like the setup as it is now for us continuing in our discussion with in this roundabout?
Yes.
Yeah, it's better being closer.
Okay, good. I don't believe we're going to actually be here. So as I said that, I realize that we may be, it could be a challenge. So anyway, we will move forward on August 9th. All right, now affirming the Roundtable as the official body for future actions, now that we've got that out of the way. Thank you for the catch. I see I'm on for this, which is interesting. I would like to introduce it with the idea that I appreciate all the time that each and every one of you spent reading this and making comments. As I believe you can see in the agenda packet that we have, we took every comment seriously, cross-referenced it with the items that you felt that needed to be have some attention given to. It's on page 32, 33 of the packet. We tried to make this a regional teamwork effort, recognizing everyone's input on this. And where you may not see yourself in every whereas, I'm hoping you will see yourself definitely in the now therefore. And so with that, I hope you have had time to review this. And I hope that we can have some either discussion or a motion to approve. Anita.
I'm sorry, I have 2 editorial changes. I started life as a technical editor. It will follow me the rest of my life. In the item 1 under the now therefore, in the penultimate line, which begins reports of the Select Committee on South Bay arrivals and the ad hoc, the word advisory is still missing there for consistency in the name of that organization. And in the paragraph above, in the now therefore, 3rd line, after the word occurred, that comma doesn't belong there. And with that, I would make a motion to approve this with great thanks to everybody, including your guys, I'm looking at the 3 of you who obviously did a huge amount of work to make this happen.
With a second from Steve. Any further discussion? I'll call the vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any, oh, geez, yeah, any opposed, no abstentions. I did not open public comment. Can we go forward without public comment, or is anyone feeling very strongly about this? Okay. I'm not seeing anyone jump up at me at this point. I'm seeing a whole bunch of things for item number 8 and Chris Finney, were you okay? And Karen Porter, were you okay? Yeah, Karen Porter? Please come to the microphone. We can't record what you're saying otherwise, or hear you.
First of all, I sympathize with being an editor. That's what I do for a living, too. But I also write a column for a small local newspaper in the Santa Cruz Mountains, and I have written about the prior committee and the work that they did. And so I'm here today to get an update on the new committee and what you guys are doing. But I'm a little bit confused about who represents. I see Capitola, I see Santa Cruz. Are you the county? Okay, because there's a huge impact on all sorts of little mountain communities. I've lived in my house for 25 years, and all of a sudden I can no longer sleep in my own bedroom. So I'm glad to see that we have representation. Thank you. That was my question.
Normally, we do not comment on this, but I think it would be worthwhile to know that in this body, Ed Boderoff and I served on the select committee.
Okay,
so
thank you.
we are very much aware of the discussions.
Some continuity, thank you, and I'm really
Yes.
glad to see the FAA here too. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, we now are on to member discussion. Kathy Watanabe, did you have anything that you wanted to speak to today?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I was just making some notes to myself, so I hopefully don't forget anything. I had passed out, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to pass out a memorandum. I've been going through San Jose's Airport Commission website, and I came across a memorandum prepared back in 2014. It was based on information from 2013 about how the San Jose was operating, and also was giving up-to-date information regarding curfew and also noise abatement procedures that the airport had taken to working with the community. I know some of you may recall I was asking about an agreement between San Jose and the city of Santa Clara and the residents regarding airport expansion, and I finally found the name of it, which is actually in this document. It was called the Acoustical Treatment Program, and it existed from 1995 to 2007. And basically, there was an FAA grant and additional monies from the airport that provided $140 million to help residents insulate their house through air conditioning, window treatments, and there was one other item to just help, with the noise. But as I read through the document, again, this is going back to 2013, and it's basically saying that it's been successful because there have been less complaints, and because airport traffic has gone down. Back in 2013, there were about 8 million passengers a year. But as I read through this, I thought they need this memorandum needs to be updated, because again, 2013, we're in 2019 now, but based on 2018 numbers, San Jose air traffic or passenger capacity has gone up to over 14 million, and it's almost doubled. And so, they were saying in this memorandum about how, well, with less people, you have less flights. Well, guess what? You've now doubled. So that means your flights have doubled as well. And so there has not been, there needs to be an update. And it's one of the reasons why I wish that San Jose was a part of this roundtable, because I know there are some community residents here today, but no action has been taken, any kind of follow-up to the flight paths, for instance, as San Jose has grown. How is that impacting the community? And are all the people out there now, have they been taken care of as a result of this acoustical treatment program that was put in place in the past? So now that I have a name, and now especially knowing how the airport is growing, I mean, I understand, there's capacity, and, the FAA has said that the airlines have, the ability to land and take off, but at the same time, too, there's an accountability to the residents. And so I'm hoping that going forward, that this is an opportunity as we go through the work plan, that we work with San Jose, or if the mountain won't come to Bahama, that Bahama will go to the mountain and go to the airport commission meeting and make them aware that there's a serious problem out there. I mean, planes are taking off and people are recording at airplane decibels at 85, and they won't come out of their house. It's just, so anyway, I'm glad we have this opportunity and look forward to moving forward and getting some resolution. Thank you.
I hope that's something that you will note on where you might find it in the work program. I think it also speaks to having a training so that we understand capacity, saturation, airport growth.
Yep.
Steve has alluded that to today.
Yep.
I don't want to call anyone else out. Kathy had reached out ahead of time and said that she wanted to have somebody, a chance to speak. I'm going to go around this way. Okay, Lydia, and then Glenn.
So since there's been interest in being proactive and having new technologies that reduce noise deployed, so I'd like to see that we pay more attention to GBAS. So on July 8th, I did send out Senator Feinstein's July 24th letter to post, but I think it got misplaced. So I did supply it today to At Places. And basically the letter is to encourage the FAA to work with SFO on developing GBAS approaches in the BSR overlay procedure, as well as consider multiple connection points to disperse air traffic. SFO had asked to discuss GBAS at the Big Sur full working group meeting that Byrd had attended in early June. The FAA had said no, that it wasn't on the agenda. So I'd like to ask the FAA if they'll consider the GBAS approaches for the Big Sur overlay and to provide rationale for the response that they come back with. Then also, I wanted to FYI everybody that Palo Alto has requested the FOIA documents for the Pirate 2, and it's now posted at the Palo Alto Airport Noise website, at the City of Palo Alto's Airport Noise website, if there's any interest to look at that, because it's pretty interesting reading. And then also, we received as a committee from EAS something about the notice of proposed rulemaking for the NPRM on supersonic noise. I'd hope that maybe you can explain a little about what we can do. Do we do anything at all, or the general public also? Lastly, I just would like to say that when council members from Palo Alto as well as staff went to DC, we attended one of the conferences which was hosted by, I believe, Noise, and there was FAA community engagement in there. However, what community engagement by that FAA officer was very different from actually meeting FAA at their offices, which contained the heads as well as their lawyers. The messages was like the left hand was not talking to the right hand, and they're speaking in different universes. So I hope that this community engagement is going to be a lot more meaningful and with full attention. So that's what I wanted to say.
Steve, do you want to speak to anything that Lydia has brought up?
Yes, Madam Chair, I will. She specifically asked about the notice of proposed rulemaking on supersonic transport, and it is by the FAA. The intention of the FAA is to seek comment on what they would like as a period of time during which they can test supersonic transport aircraft. They are coming in the future, both in terms of business jet aircraft as well as commercial airliners. There are multiple firms that are developing these aircraft. And in order for the FAA to be able to set noise regulations for these aircraft, they need to be able to test them. So this is the initial approach for the FAA to conduct testing related to this. Certainly, Roundtable members are welcome to pull that up. If you do notice of proposed rulemaking, FAA supersonic transport, you will find this particular NPRN, and it's also on the website. We posted it there. What I would say is that what is more important for the Roundtable to track, and this would fall into our legislation under the work program, is that the FAA does need to develop new noise standards for the next generation of supersonic aircraft. And that's something that we would all want to track very carefully, because right now, stage 5 is the standard for non-supersonic aircraft. I think there's a general assumption that we'd like to keep that particular noise level, or perhaps even advance it further. But because these aircraft perform quite differently and have quite different engines, they could be potentially louder than that. So that's something for the roundtable to track and to weigh in on and advocate over time.
And where would that fall in our work plan?
Legislative, it could be a legislative subcommittee.
Okay, good.
Just to mention, will you also please announce the deadline date for submitting the comments, just so that we all know, and the...
I don't know it off the top of my head. If someone has internet access and can tell us that, that would be great. The deadline date for the NPRM.
I just found it.
You have it? Great.
It says send comments on or before August 27, 2019.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Lydia. Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Then I have a couple things as a chair. Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah, I have a question, possibly suggestion for how we're going to deal with the FAA's verbal response to the ad hoc committee's requests. And I keep hearing that we need to give the FAA advance notice of our questions. I was actually kind of hoping that we were going to get to hear the verbal feedback and then we'd be able to ask questions, but I kind of get the sense that's not going to work. So I would like to suggest for everybody, we're going to try and get this agendized, hopefully sometime, that if anybody has read the ad hoc report, either on the committee here or in the public, if they could go ahead and send their comments to Steve, that maybe we could kind of put together a package of what are our current questions to the ad hoc response from the FAA, so that that could go to the FAA in advance, and they could maybe have people in here present who would be able to respond to stuff. I have a lengthy set of responses to everything that's written there. I've also tried to separate out what are of that lengthy piece, what are the 4 or 5 specific questions I'm only going to be able to talk, because we're not going to be able to go through all the questions verbally. So I don't know if the chair has a thought about how we're going to run that, or if people should be trying to, send all their questions to maybe Steve, so that that could be correlated, or to the chair or whoever.
roundtable at gmail.com.
To that place, to then.
And everyone will see it.
Then it could be correlated, and really mostly to be able to get it to the FAA in advance.
And does it make sense to reference the appropriate part of that great matrix that you drafted when one responds? And thank you, because that's awesome.
And FAA, do you have any updates on what kind of information you will be able to give us at the next meeting?
I think if we can talk about that later, it would be helpful, but I know that we will have responses in the coming days to I believe there's about 23 questions on Loop and Pirate, so that will definitely have, and I may have a few other things for you, so maybe we can talk about it and plan for what needs to be on the agenda and what technical representative will need
Again,
to
we
speak on.
only have the ability to have technical here every other month at this point, and we have asked a lot of questions, and we need to get them all addressed somehow or other. So I really appreciate, Glenn, you talking about having the public send the comments so we can key them up. And I appreciate this too, because I need help as the chair with ESA to set the agenda. And I appreciate that. So to finish up, there's a statement that I would like to make. There was a misconception that came out of the last meeting that I need to clarify as chair. The Roundtable has not taken any action on flight track changes. If we were to do so, we would be stepping into the FAA jurisdiction. They are the ones that are the experts. They are the ones that are doing the flight track changes, and we're not, as a body, commissioned to do that. SCSCroundtable@gmail.com. All of you, please send your input. We will be a much more efficient body if we get input ahead of time through that. We are dedicated to putting things on our website when they appear as applicable. And also in terms of the Feinstein letter and the things that that Alistair Fife submitted. We did submit, I submitted with a cover letter, the materials we received asking the FAA to respond to all this information that you have brought up. And it included Santa Cruz County and probably Los Altos Hills and Palo Alto in that. So we'll have to look to the FAA because that's the right body to respond to that. But keep those emails coming in, kids. I love late night reading. I have some news from the organizer, the facilitator, Mike McClintock at the Oakland Noise Forum. They are quite willing to start working with us and collaborating with us. I have yet to receive anything from SFO, so I have not personally taken any action in trying to get the bodies to meet together and talk about how this might play out. But I did want to give you that. And finally, deadline Friday to submit, especially if you have anything that you want to have our location individuals have submitted to show up on this, because otherwise it just isn't going to work. I don't think you have any, I don't have any cards for public comment on this. Is there anybody else on member comment? I have a question for you all. I am hearing training on GBAS and airport growth. We already know that we have a need to review the budget, which has to occur next time. We will be getting some information from technical from the FAA. They will be here, and they will let us know what they will be discussing. I'd like to know if you want to have GBAS training or airport growth. Either one of them are both important. I think airport growth might inform us very well on where we can go forward. And I'm going to ask you not today to say anything unless you really, really want to, but to send it into scscroundtable@gmail.com too. And so you can be a part of setting up the agenda. Any input now? We are at 3:25. I have comment cards from the same people that have spoken on everything else. I'm hoping you have something new. I am going to need to take it to 1 minute, whether that follows rules or not, because we really do need to get out of here and respect the city of Santa Clara's time. And again, thanks to them for arranging this. Jennifer Landesman. And if you would like to defer, if you hear anything that a previous speaker has said and you just want to agree and not speak, raise your hand and just say you'll pass when your card comes up.
Yes, so GBAS started out with a presentation from Boeing at the San Francisco Roundtable saying that it was going to help reduce noise. It was marketed exactly like NextGen was. And we asked, how is it going to do, how's that going to work? Speed into the next phase of GBAS, all of a sudden what will really help reduce noise becomes an innovative procedure. And in the meantime, everything, all of a sudden, 1 million airlines and everybody's at the table lobbying for this to be a CADX. So citizens asked 10 questions. The guide was, we will do no harm. No data about that. So now we have a senator saying, expedite GBAS. Well, what do we know about GBAS? Thank you for getting the training, but this has to be together with the environmental process again. And where do we fit in? Why are designs being finalized? And thank you, Bert, for asking, because this is a systems issue. You can't just do one little thing and then another little thing. So I'm sorry I'm raising my voice, but this is the greatest frustration, which is that there is an unlevel playing field.
Thank you very much. Shiva, you played your tape. Do you have any more information?
It wasn't for entertainment alone, right? Like, I don't understand why Santa Clara alone pays the bill for the benefits the entire Bay Area gets from San Jose Airport here. I don't understand how Sunnyvale or San Jose, I don't see any flight paths going over there. I don't know how they escaped scot-free. Maybe I'm inaccurate here. Number two, the only concrete action item, actionable solution that can give us immediate relief would be divvying up the flight paths, distributing it across different days, across these different communities. Everything else, new tech, new regulation, et cetera, we're not talking about immediate relief for anyone. I hope to see some prescriptive approaches from FAA on that regard, rather than wait for people to cry and complain and then act on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Shiva. Stephen Payne. Are you here? No. Okay. Marie-Jo Fremont.
So I was disappointed by the FAA response on the San Jose South Flow arrivals, but I was not surprised based on my past experience with other FAA responses. An example, they typically dismiss proposal, claiming that the change will shift noise to another community, yet they never offered any data on the amount of noise that will be shifted and to whom. But the reason is because noise is not a priority for the FAA. Reducing noise is not something that the FAA is obligated to do right now. And in fact, on page 4 of their response, they stated that they're willing to consider changes to procedures for operational or safety needs. Noise is not mentioned. That's why you need a subcommittee to work on legislation. And in fact, you need to work to have both subcommittees look at the FAA response. The procedure one should look at the technical aspect. The legislation one should look at the policy type aspect. And they need to understand why the FAA dismissed that, these requests and suggestions, propose alternatives and modification, and then recommend next step to this roundtable. Thank you.
Thank you. Leslie, is it Tiara?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'm new to this process, so excuse me for maybe not knowing it all, but I'm in the same area, the BSR area. And my understanding was that you were really proposing to move the SER-FR area over to the BSR, back over to the BSR. And I'm hearing you all say that you're concerned about the noise everywhere and not just one particular area, which is what I also want to underscore. And the idea of spreading everything out makes sense, but my understanding also is that the next gen Metroplex plan makes a more narrow band of air traffic, which puts it over all this traffic, a huge amount of traffic over one area. The current SER-FR plan being moved back to the BSR area is not the same. It was moved this last winter, and it is not the same. We have a unique topography with very high steep mountain walls, and we need local noise measurement and not computerized models. As well, we have a higher population. So these things all need to be taken into account, please.
Thank you very much. Gaurav Menhani? I'm sorry if I fractured your name.
I'm here to talk about these slides that we have distributed to the roundtable. They're about North Flow specifically. Santa Clara receives close to 500 flights that are flying at 800 feet above our home. Sometimes the home alarm monitors trigger. They think that the plane is like some intruder. It's that low. One resident said like they can hit the plane with a tennis ball if they wanted, like it's that low. San Jose Airport has grown to 14.3 million passengers per year and zero community involvement. These are 90 decibel flights that are taking off on top of our homes, and 60 decibel is the level at which there is cognitive and hearing impairment. Every 15 seconds, there is a flight taking off in the morning as well as in the daytime, and multiple takeoffs at the same time going on. And if you take a look at what's been happening the past 3 months, like new gates have opened and this has made our lives hellish. So yeah, this is the concern that Shiva, Javed, Bodhi, everyone is echoing, and we're just like very few residents who are coming here. There are hundreds of residents who are there complaining about this every day on Nextdoor. So this is a very serious matter. Please take it seriously.
Thank you. So to clarify, you are from Santa Clara?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Robert Sherman?
Hi, good afternoon. I also live in Santa Clara. In fact, I live and work in North Santa Clara, so I spend pretty much my entire life under the North Flow flight plan from the airport. Just want to note that a lot of the focus of the paperwork I've seen from this committee seems to be about the South Flow. Just don't forget that the bulk of air transport right now is over North San Jose, Santa Clara, Alviso, in that area. And you know, just want to make sure that that's kept into consideration as you make your deliberations. Thank you.
Thank you. George Wiley.
Thank you, and I apologize for the earlier. Just as I said, we would need to find a regional solution, and the Select Committee did a pretty good job of trying to find that out, but 8-4 is not a consensus. It's far short of a consensus, and even one of the votes in that action, the the voter tried to, or was looking at changing his vote. So we're looking for regional consensus. We don't have it. And this body here is, I'm sure, to help us find that regional consensus. And I will tell you right now, if expedition is applied to the Surfer Back to Big Sur without everything that it needs to go into, all the research, including asking the people who will be affected, then this room will be filled with 150 people every meeting you have for the next 4 years until that problem gets solved. So please, Surfer Back to Big Sur. Steve May of the FAA said, what's Big Sur going to look like? Steve May said, just like Surfer.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Javid. I believe it's Asiam.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Javid Aslam. I live in Santa Clara. I just wanted to say that in the midst of all the bureaucratic noise, the actual problem has been lost. And the problem is that we have to constantly live with effectively a noise generator in our house. That means our right to live peacefully in our house has been violated. And this is happening because FAA is allowing the airlines to get their profit at the cost of the residents. Why our right to live in our house peacefully should be violated? And this looks like taken very lightly. There are all kinds of procedural difficulties and all kinds of problems. We don't care. What are the laws? They're not being enforced. Who would like to have even a 50 dB noise generator installed in their house? That is the question. People should be asked, and I think there has to be even a federal level law to resolve this problem.
Thank you. Robert Holbrook.
It's really hard. The supersonic thing's kind of a big deal. During the FAA reauthorization bill last year, it was clear that industry wants to rewind the standards, the noise standards for supersonic aircraft to 1974 levels. That's stage 3. I think the input, if I heard correctly, is required by the day before the next meeting, so we'll all have to act independently on this one. The roundtable can't act as a group. But that's what industry wants to do. I don't think, if you have an answer.
I didn't quite understand what you were saying, but that's okay.
Okay, I've got...
Because you've only got a few minutes to
I've got 26 seconds. Yes. I spent maybe 80 hours writing a 6-page memo, which is in your 128-page packet, starting on page 69. I encourage you all to read it. It's prep for another document that I will send, which is a spreadsheet listing all 64 items and the suggested response that I think we should take to the FAA for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for clarifying. Zachary Kaufman, Sunnyvale.
Congratulations. South flow is solved, or at least that is what ground tracks seem to show. Picture after picture in the ad hoc response show good dispersed flight paths. Is this what the FAA sees when they're developing a new flight path? Can they see concentrations? Are you curious? Does the FAA need to adjust something?
Bodhi Das.
Hello, I live and work in Santa Clara, and I'm going to echo some of the things you have heard from the other North Santa Clara residents. So actually, we in the North Santa Clara, we get the brunt of the impact of the growth of the airport called the San Jose Airport. And there's been a significant increase in noise since actually, I would say, fall of 2017. We've been living in the same area since 2007 and in the same house since early 2010. Now, of course, we have lodged numerous complaints, and sometimes we have heard, oh, your average noise level hasn't gone up. I think average noise, just the average, is not the right metric. It should be actually weighted average, where the weight should be the noise level, and then also the number of occurrences per day. And also, we have heard about 65 dBs, 55 dBs, but we actually live under 85 or more, and we actually live under one of those considered rails. So please distribute the flights as much as possible away from the residential areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Jennifer. As Jennifer's coming up, that's the last card that I've received. If anyone else, okay, somehow I've missed it, Darlene, I'll remember. Thank you.
Okay. We all know here that NextGen prioritizes the airlines and airports' efficiency and safety, but it does not consider at all noise or the residents. We know this is a problem nationally, and there has been an outcry. Having said that, now we're looking into supersonic flights. Let's not let the airlines and the airports win on this. This is where committees like this, roundtables like this, with their subcommittees, can push back at this point before supersonic comes into play and say, do not fly supersonic flights that will be extremely loud into metroplexes. We already have a problem. We're just exacerbating it. And I'm sorry if we're saying no to the airlines, but there is a point where they need to solve the problem before we make it worse. I also wanted to comment on night hush, which I know is coming down the pike, because there may be issues with that as well. Thank you.
Yes.
Big Sur overlay. Given the FAA has limited resources, please consider having Bert provide an update to the June full working group if he's no longer censored by the FAA to do so. Number 2, GBAS. There's a pattern. We're either too late or too early to get involved with procedure development. You want to have advanced technology used to reduce aircraft noise. We must advocate the use of GBAS that will allow dispersion in the Big Sur overlay. Number 3, pirate. May 13th, we submitted questions from the roundtable. May 22nd, the FAA came back and were unable to answer the questions because they were dealing with issues with pirate. We should not have to burn one of our 3 questions to have them come back to answer and prepare the questions they were supposed to ask several months ago. The roundtable is supposed to be the best venue for engaging with the FAA to address pirate concerns. Subsequently, Palo Alto did not sue. So let's please prove the doubters wrong and show that we can collaborate and put this on the agenda.
Thank you. Anybody else? Alistair. And then I'm going to stop public comment, please, if I can.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk. With regards to the FAA versus the roundtable and flight track changes, the FAA clearly owns flight track decisions. However, only the roundtable can provide feedback to the FAA about regional consensus and whether regional consensus exists. This establishing regional consensus for flight path change is essential to establish the legitimacy of it. With respect to reduction of noise, which we talked about at the last meeting a bit, there's a little bit of a show and tell here. If you look at the report on page 5, the words optional consideration never show up with respect to noise reduction. It's considered essential. If you look at flight tracks prepared by SFO and by the FAA, there's 2 take-home truths. Traffic is never vectored to the east, so if you move the flight track west, you're always concentrating traffic, and those who live to the west already receive half the traffic. If you look at Santa Cruz census data, you see that about 1,500 more people live under the BSR track.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. That ends our comments from the public. We now are at the review of roundtable action items. Steve.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll be brief. The roundtable continued the item number 3, the discussion of the strategic plan, with an August 9th date to provide feedback using the SESC roundtable at gmail.com website. And so we'll bring that up at a future meeting. The roundtable continued the IFP gateway update to a future meeting. Item number 5, the roundtable also continued that item with receiving input by August 9th to the SCSC roundtable for member input. And with item number 6, the roundtable approved the resolution with 2 edits that were provided by Anita. We will make those edits, provide that to roundtable chair to sign. That's it.
Thank you very much, and appreciation to all who have attended today. All of you, I deeply appreciate the input, and I will be looking forward to those emails at scscroundtable@gmail.com. Thank you all very much.